Welcome, welcome, welcome back to another episode of the Ian Fritts Show. It's me again, Ian, and we have a fun one. We are doing a bracket style bold predictions. So the goal, I have 12 bold predictions here, randomly seeded, and I'm going to bracket them out, and we're going to get the most likely bold prediction. It's going to be fun. Let's get into it.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State's Jalen Watts Jackson, and he scores on the last play of the game. Unbelievable.
35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis.
Oh, my God.
Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game. He ran the missed field goal.
Okay, it's going to be up here behind me somewhere. I'll be down on the left or down on the right. You know the drill by now. And let's just jump right in. Okay, so the 1 seed, it came out to be a non-QB wins the Heisman, which honestly, pretty dang good 1 seed because that's going to be, well, I guess it should be a 12 seed. Never mind. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough for me to get in the championship game. Number 4, you can't read all of them, but I know them, so it's all good. Number 4 will be there are 0 one-loss teams in the college football playoff. Now, that doesn't mean every team in the college football playoff has 2 or more. It's either 0 or 2 or more. I just know one-loss teams, which that's going to be difficult. These are bold predictions. These aren't regular predictions. These are bold, okay? The 2 seed, Alabama is the leading offense in the SEC in the first year under Kalen DeBoer. Now, this one, I'm going with scoring offense, not total offense, not yardage based scoring. And number 3, Will Howard does not end the season as the Ohio State starting quarterback. Now, stipulation here, no stipulations. He either injury because they're running him a lot. Now he's a big body, may be pretty difficult to get injured. It's either injury or he's replaced because he's stinking it up. But Ryan Day took a long time to get Kyle McCord out of there the whole year, so I'm not sure they will ever bench him. Okay, so moving right along to 8 and 9 matchup. 8 seed, a top 5 preseason team will finish the year outside the top 25. That, there maybe. Number 9, a team that has never made the college football playoff. So in the 10 years we had the 4 team, a team that never made it there will win the national championship. That's bold. That's a bold one. Number 5 seed, we have Georgia goes undefeated in the regular season for the 3rd straight year. They did it last year, did it the year before. Can they do it a 3rd time? They're the regular season kings. We will see. Number 12, the Big Ten gets more teams in the college football playoff than the SEC. Number 7 seed, a non-preseason top 10 team wins the national championship. The 10 seed, every Power 4 conference is won by a team that is in their first year in that conference. The 6th seed, whoever wins the national I don't even remember this one, to be honest with you. Whoever wins the national title has a defense ranked outside the top 30 in scoring defense. We'll get into a little bit of history with that one. And the 6C, a freshman wide receiver leads the country in receiving yards or touchdowns. I'm not going both. It's one or the other. So we'll see what we can do. We'll jump right in. We're going to the 8-9 matchup. A top 5 preseason team finishes the season outside the top 25, or a team that has never made the college football playoff wins the national championship. Now, these kind of good going against each other because they kind of go hand in hand. Most of the teams in the top 10 have made a college football playoff. Off the top of my head, Ole Miss hasn't. Notre Dame has. FSU has not. So one of those 2 teams wins the national championship. I think that's going to be a little hard. I think that's going to be tough. A team that has never made it winning the national championship. Or Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. One of those 5 teams finishes outside the top 25. I don't see that happening. If all of those teams go 8 and 4, I still see them in the top 25 at the end of the year. So we're going to jump right in here and we're going to move on. We're going to move on. A team that has never made the college football playoff wins the national championship game. I think that is more likely to happen. So we're gonna move them on. Submit those scores. Boom, they're moving on to the second round. Okay, let's move right in here. Georgia goes undefeated in the regular season for a third straight year, or the Big Ten gets more teams in the college football playoff than the SEC. These are two good matchups. This is a good matchup here. Look, Georgia, their schedule's tough. They got to go to Texas. They got to go to Alabama. They're playing Florida, which now Florida, not the best team in the world, but they're going to be tough this year. They're going to be tough this year. Billy Napier fighting for his job. They have a lot of tough games. They play Missouri, Tennessee. Look, Georgia's got a really tough schedule. We know that. Can Kirby Smart do it again? I'm leaning no. However, the Big Ten gets more teams in the college football playoff than the SEC. Let's think through that one a little bit. How bold is that? I think it's pretty bold because I don't think the Big Ten is as deep as the SEC this year. So you got Ohio State and Oregon. Let's say they are both locks. Okay, so you got two for the Big Ten. Then you have Georgia, and let's just take the top two teams in the SEC. You got Georgia and Alabama or Texas. That's three teams. Could be locks for the college football playoff. Then you have an Ole Miss, could be in there. Then you have a Missouri, could be in there, peaking at the outside the top 10 right now currently. Then you have a Tennessee, Oklahoma, teams like that knocking on the door of top 12. So that's a lot of teams right there that could easily be in the college football playoff. Now the issue is, are they going to get 4 or 5 teams in the college football playoff? I think two for each conference is a lock. I think both teams that make the championship game, I think they're in no matter what. No matter what the outcome of that game is, they're in the college football playoff. Now, again, Penn State right there below Ohio State and Oregon this year, and then probably Michigan going into the season as they're a top 10 team right now in the preseason. So there's 4 teams right there. Now, I'm not a big believer in Michigan this year. I don't have them doing particularly well. Now, that defense can keep them in a lot of games. I'm just not sure if I believe in Alex Orgy at the moment. So this is a tough matchup because I for sure don't see Georgia going undefeated, which means I think I'm going to go with the Big Ten gets more teams in the college football playoff than the SEC, which as I'm saying that, I don't think that's going to happen either. But that's why these are bold predictions. That's why these are bold predictions. But we're going to go Big Ten gets more teams in the SEC. I'm more comfortable with that one happening than Georgia going undefeated in the regular season with the season that they have, or with the schedule that they have. Excuse me. So we're going to go Big Ten more teams in the college football playoff than the SEC. Submit those scores. Boom, they're moving on. All right, we'll jump right into this third matchup here. I'm going to take a sip, show off the mug a little bit. Boom, you want one of these, let me know. Ice cold, keeps your stuff cold. Now, spoiler, there's no properties about this mug that keeps anything cold. Little secret I like to use to keep stuff cold. It's called ice. Does the job. Okay. A non-preseason top 10 team wins the national championship. Every Power 4 conference is won by a newcomer. Now, a non-preseason top 10 team wins the national championship. I think this is going to be very, very difficult to happen. Okay. Look, that means Georgia's not winning. Alabama's not winning. Ole Miss isn't winning. Texas isn't winning. Oregon's not winning. Notre Dame isn't winning. Penn State isn't winning. Michigan isn't winning. And there's 2 other teams in the top 10 that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. That's 8 teams that are probably going to win the national championship. If you gave me those 8 teams, I'd probably say one of those 8 teams wins, and the rest of the college football world is sad. So that's very bold. A non-preseason top 10 team winning the national championship. Tennessee's right there. Missouri would be knocking on the door. Utah probably have the best chance right outside the top 10 right now, just because they probably have an easier path. Look, the Big 12, not as strong as some of these other conferences, especially at the top. Now, there's a lot of parity. Don't know what's going to happen in the Big 12 this year. Probably 15 teams in that 25-team conference can win the whole thing. Big 12 conference, I mean. Big 12 championship. 15 teams could probably win that conference. So me saying Utah has the best chance of doing this as a team outside the top 10, maybe. It's hard for me to wrap my head around. Now, every Power 4 conference is won by a newcomer. This I can get a little more behind. Still don't love it. Still don't love it because look, let's start with the Pac-12. You have USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. Excuse me, Big 10. I said Pac-12. In the Big 10, those four are the new teams there. So I would think three of those four teams have they could make some noise. I'm not saying Washington is going to do a lot, and I'm not UCLA definitely isn't going to do anything. So we can eliminate them. That means we have three teams to make this happen. Can these three teams make it happen? I think there's a chance because USC wild card in the Big Ten this year. Love their offense, obviously. Oregon, look, you already know what I picked them to do. I picked them to win the conference. I picked them to win the national championship. So I'm gonna say, okay, I see it happening in the Big Ten. Let's move to the Big 12. Okay, I see it happening in the Big 12. You got Utah, Arizona, definitely could make it happen in the Big 12. I can see that. Okay, let's move to the ACC. Now, let's do the ACC last. Let's move to the SEC. We have OU and Texas. Look, there's only two chances. There's only two chances for this to happen. In Texas, look, number 3 team in the preseason, they could definitely make it happen easily. Easily. They have a great team. Great team. Quinn Ewers, third year. Steve Sarkisian, third year. Fourth year, excuse me. They could definitely make it happen. So maybe, yeah, I can see it happening in the SEC. That wasn't my pick, but I could see it happening. Move to the ACC because I think this is the conference where it's going to be the hardest, and it's mainly because of the teams that they have coming in. I don't love, I don't love what they're bringing in. Like you got Stanford, you got Cal, you got SMU, and one other team that is escaping me at the moment. I think SMU has the highest chance of making it happen in the ACC. Now, does it happen? I don't think so. And the crazy thing about this bold prediction right here is it has to happen in all four conferences. That's why I think it's harder for that to happen than a non top 10 team. No, now as I'm saying that, guys, I can't. This is a tough matchup right here. If it was which one's the boldest, this might be the championship match of which one's the boldest prediction. I'm going to go. I think every Power Four conference is won by a newcomer is easier than a non preseason top 10 team winning the national championship. I think I just can't wrap my head around a non top 10 team winning the national championship. I can't get there. So we're going every Power Four conference is won by a newcomer. I don't love it, but that's what we're going with. All right, this is a fun one. I like this one a lot. Whoever wins the national title has a defense ranked outside the top 30 in scoring defense. Scoring defense is the emphasis there, and also top 30, and winning the national championship. So a lot happening there. And then we have a freshman wide receiver. This is not a redshirt freshman. Should have specified. This is a true freshman wide receiver, leads the country in receiving yards or touchdowns. Okay. That that might just get this prediction through because there's an or. So whoever wins the national title has a defense ranked outside the top 30. The last time this happened, 2019, LSU, they had a generational offense. Basically, that entire offense is in the NFL currently. So I'm not even going to give this one two thoughts. I don't think that's going to happen again this year. I think it's going to be very difficult for a team to win the national championship, especially with the amount of games they have to play this year. So I'm going to move on. A freshman wide receiver leading the country in receiving yards or touchdowns. A lot of elite wide receivers going around this year. Jeremiah Smith up at Ohio State. You got Cam Coleman at Auburn. Now, do I love Auburn's offense? But he's that good of a receiver that it can happen. You have Ryan Williams at Alabama, Bryant Wesco, and excuse me, forgetting his name. His counterpart, 2 5-star wide receivers over there in Clemson. So either one of those guys could make it happen. So we're just going to move on. We're going to move on the freshman wide receiver leading the country in receiving yards or touchdowns. That's a big one. If it was both, I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. But I really don't see someone winning the national championship with a defense outside the top 30. So we're going to move that along. We're into the second round here. We're into the second round. We'll go right up to the top match here. A non-QB wins the Heisman, or a team that has never made the college football playoff wins the national championship. These are bold. These are bold. Both of these extremely bold. A non QB wins the Heisman. Look, you had Derrick Henry 10 years back. You had Devontae Smith a few years ago. You just have to have such a year that separates you astronomically from all these quarterbacks. Um, and the quarterbacks have to have a really down year. Now, are there stellar quarterbacks this year across the country? Not as many as last year, I don't think. Now, I love Dylan Gabriel. I think Carson Beck's a stud. Those are my top two quarterbacks this year. So, and coincidentally, the top two quarterbacks in the Heisman odds. So, I have a hard time believing a non QB can win the Heisman. But a team that has never made the college football playoff winning the national championship, if there's any year that that happens, I think it's this year. So we're moving that along. Move it right along. Just cuz there's so many teams making the playoff this year, guys. So many teams. All right. Moving right along. 4 seed versus the 12 seed. Again, randomly seeded. And if you're just tuning in, I don't know how you would just tune into the middle of the video. I'm not going off which one I think is the boldest. I'm going off which bold prediction I think is most likely to happen. There's a difference. There are 0 one-loss teams in the college football playoff. Big Ten gets more teams in the college football playoff than the SEC. This is an interesting matchup here. 0 one-loss teams, and I think I'm leaning 0 one-loss teams in the college football playoff, mainly because now I think there's gonna be a one-loss team in the college football playoff, but that's why it's bold. That's why it's bold. So I'm gonna go with I just I have a hard time believing the Big Ten gets more teams in the college football playoff than the SEC. It's just not as deep. I know they're both getting two. That's a guarantee. I see them both getting the same, but since it says more, that's where I can't believe it. I'm going 0 one-loss teams in the college football playoff. Again, that doesn't mean no undefeated teams. That just means only undefeated teams and 2 loss or more teams. And I think that is very doable. So we're going that one. We're moving them on. They're going to the quarterfinals there, semifinals, excuse me. Okay, I'm going to take a sip here. Alabama is the leading offense in the SEC versus every Power Four conference is won by a newcomer. I've already outlined every Power Four conference being won by a newcomer. There's a lot that goes into that. Now, Alabama being the leading offense in the SEC, a lot more doable. They're going to have the best offensive line in the SEC. They have the best head coach in the SEC. Yeah, I believe Kalen DeBoer is the best head coach in the SEC. Comment down below. Ian, you're an idiot. Kirby Smart still exists. I know he still exists. He's number 2, right behind him. But I think Kalen DeBoer, number 1. So I think that is definitely possible with what they have running back wise. Who's going to be their leading rusher? I don't know, but both of those dudes are studs. So give me Alabama leading the offense, having the leading offense in the SEC, scoring offense wise. Yeah, every Power Four conference is won by a newcomer. I think that is very bold. I don't see it happening. That's going to be tough. But SMU, they can make it happen. Okay, moving right along. Last one. Who gets it? Who gets into the semifinals here? Will Howard does not end up as the starter at Ohio State at the end of the year. A freshman wide receiver leads the country in receiving yards or touchdowns. Again, I've outlined those freshman wide receivers. There's a lot of them, a lot of really good ones. Now, I don't love Will Howard. Sign me up. Not my favorite quarterback. Not my favorite quarterback. I don't think he should have been as highly recruited in the portal as he was. Now, to end up not as the starter at the end of the year, that's tough because he must have had a really tough go of it. I think that is going to be really, really hard to happen. So I'm leaning a freshman wide receiver leading the country in receiving yards or touchdowns. Let's go with that. Now, hard for that to happen. I don't know if it's ever happened, but we're going with that because I think Will Howard, he's going to hold on. I don't love him still. I think he's going to hold on to that starting job though, and he's going to finish the year the starter. All right, the final 4 here. Moving right along. Got to take a sip before we get into these final 4. Okay, here we go. A team that has never made the college football playoff wins the national championship, or there are 0 one-loss teams in the college football playoff. Just thinking about this, guys. You got to think about this one. A team that has never made the college football playoff, winning the national championship. Look, right off the bat, you can't do Georgia, obviously. You can't do Oregon. They've made the college football playoff. You can't do Texas. They've made it. You can't do Alabama. They've made it. You can't do, did I say Ohio State? You can't do Ohio State. You can, Ole Miss is that first team. So they're your best bet. Ole Miss right there. Penn State is right there. Trying to think. Tennessee is right there. Utah's right there. There's 4 or 5 teams that they could do it. It's going to be hard for them to do it, but they could. Ole Miss is your best shot again. But 0 one-loss teams in the college football playoff. I see a lot of one-loss teams, if I'm being honest. I see that being probably the majority of the teams have 1 loss. Well, I think majority of the teams have 2 losses, but I think conference champions, they're probably going to have 1 loss. But I think that's more believable than a team that has never made the college football playoff winning the national championship. I don't see that happening. We're gonna move on. There are 0 one-loss teams in the college football playoff. That's tough. That's tough. That's very bold. Very bold. Okay, who's battling them out in the championship here? Alabama, the leading offense in the SEC, versus a freshman wide receiver leading the country in receiving yards or touchdowns. I already know where I'm going here. Alabama leading offense in the SEC. I think that is way more doable than a freshman leading the country in receiving yards or touchdowns. However, Ryan Williams, he could be a very big part of Alabama being the leading offense in the SEC. Um, championship game here. Championship game here. Who is going to take it home as the most likely bold prediction in this 12 bold predictions that I have set before you guys and myself? Now, we could go back and do this in a separate video. Which one of these was the boldest? Because that might be good. That might be good. Because I think they're all very bold. However, I think there is a clear winner right in front of us here. I think Alabama is the leading offense in the SEC. Now, who do I think is going to be vying for that title? I think the obvious choice is Ole Miss. I think they're right there. I think Tennessee is going to be right there. Even Georgia. Took me 3 names to get to Georgia. I think they're going to be right there. So those 3 teams right there, they're going to be vying for that title. Best offense in the SEC. Alabama has their work cut out for them, but I believe Kalen DeBoer can work some magic with Jalen Milroe this year and have the best offense scoring wise in the SEC. So they're the winners. Hopefully, it gives me a good winner graphic here. It did not. But Alabama, they have become the leading offense in the SEC. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We may go back and do which one of these 12 bold predictions was the boldest, because I think that could be fun as well. But which one was the most likely? I think Alabama is the leading offense scoring wise in the SEC in the 2024 season. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.